Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. As you all must know by now, I am someone that has worked in the event industry and seen what happens behind the scenes, and also attended events all over the world. And it is nothing short of heartbreaking what is going on in the event industry and hospitality right now. And most of the tech events that I attend overseas are going virtual in 2021 until things get back to normal. And until things get back to normal, this is what we're going to have to put up with and expect. And to all my friends and colleagues that I've worked with at the NEC Group, my heart goes out to you guys as well. And I'm hoping that today's conversation is going to give everyone a few ideas of how they can bounce back. But where do you start to create a virtual event? What works? What doesn't? And where do we go from here? So I've invited Jasper from a company called Branded, who recently put their All That Matters event online this year, and they had a tremendous success and had a eclectic lineup of speakers that included Mike Shinoda, David Mamet, and not to forget, of course, Elmo and Cookie Monster, all of which clearly highlighted the success of the event. So what does make a successful virtual event? How did they pull it off at Branded? Well, buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Singapore today so we can speak with Jasper about the event industry and the great work that they're doing at Branded. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Jasper. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, Neil. My name is Jasper Donat, CEO of a company called Branded. We are based in Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore. We've been here for about 20 years. I would say if we'd spoken 9 months ago, I'd tell you that we organise big events and festivals, and we encourage lots of people to squish into small spaces and have a great time. But now I can tell you that we are a 100% fully digital, full service event producer and agency. But we've gone fully online in the last 9 months.
Hey, I've been on quite a ride there, along with so many others in the event industry too. And you did recently host an extremely successful event called All That Matters. But this year it was a little bit different. So can you talk to me about that? And what was it like hosting a 100% online event?
Yeah, so it was our 15th year, and the previous 14 were live and, thousands of people running around Hong Kong or Singapore. And this year we had to go virtual, and it was a process through the year. At the beginning of the year, when COVID first hit, we thought, we'd been through SARS in 2003. We thought, this is history repeating itself. We'll all be back in the summer. So our plan A was that we'd be producing a live event again. And I remember saying that we had plan X, and plan X was that it would be 100% virtual. And I said at the time, hell will freeze over if we go 100% virtual. And our CMO a couple of months ago asked me if she was going to buy me a hat and gloves when we announced we were going virtual. So we went 100% virtual, and it was very successful in a number of ways. Obviously, I think the world would have preferred to have been there in person. The reason people go to conferences and shows and stuff is to be with people, but you can't replicate that 100% online, but you can do a lot more online that you can't do in a physical live space. So we learned a lot in a very short space of time, and there were some really, really great things that came out of it, and some learnings that I'm happy to share as well. I think for everyone who works in the event business right now, we need to share information with people. Normally that might be, you might keep to yourself and all that kind of stuff. But I think for the industry to succeed and move, everyone needs to share information. So I'm happy to share a few learnings.
Absolutely, if you could, because I do know a lot of people in the event industry. I myself, I was traveling all over the world, attending 10, 15 conferences a year. And obviously all that has completely been removed. And I'm getting all the emails now saying next year is going to be a virtual event. And there's a lot of people finding their way and not knowing what to do next and just hoping for the best. But so anything that you've learned along the way that would just help that process easier for anyone listening would be incredibly helpful.
There are some very, very good, some big positives that come about from going virtual. I mean, you're borderless, right? So by default, an event that is based in the south of London, the south of Bombay, the north of New York, anywhere is global. So the borders come down. So all of a sudden you can attract people who would never normally have thought of jumping on a plane and coming to you. And that can be whether that's the program or whether that's the attendees as well. And when you're in somewhere like Singapore, it's a long flight from New York. And when you're somewhere like London, it's a long flight from Beijing. And when you're in Sydney, it's a long flight from anywhere. Yeah. So all of a sudden, those borders come down. And so we managed to attract speakers and delegates that would never normally have been able to or wanted to make that kind of increased journey. It saves a lot of money for them as well, and time, and jet lag. So the borders come down. What else happens is think about the connections and engagement just increases by you can't put a number against it, because all of a sudden this huge network and community building opportunity for everyone is just there. Now it's not the same as meeting in a hotel lobby, in a bar, we used to do these amazing. We're famous for doing these pool parties, which is another story. But you're not there. Being there, virtual, I don't believe will ever replace being there. Now that's for my generation. Perhaps for another conversation. But you look at the Twitch generation. Your average 18-year-old are hanging out with millions of people online, and then they'll never meet them face to face. But I think for now, it does increase the connections and engagement you can have online. Your event can go from being a room of 300 people to 30,000 people, just by making it's scalable and accessible if you want to do that. The content that you produce, because you're standing in front of a camera already, the content is richer, and it's there. You don't have to set up 6 cameras in a ballroom or in a festival in an arena. You don't have to have all the cameras and the crew and all that stuff. And so the content is there. It's immediate and it has a much longer shelf life. For a lot long, the life cycle of the event doesn't have to be 1 or 2 days. It can be 1 or 2 months. You can really extend it. And I've seen a lot of people are testing this idea of whether it should be, can you spread something out over time? Because you understand, people, when you go to an event, then you have time for that event. When you don't physically go to the event, you got other shit going on. You've got notifications coming in. You've got Facebook going off. You've got WhatsApp coming. You've got all this stuff, calls. You've got other things to do. You're not there for the event. So the people, really looking at different ways of planning a life cycles and stuff. I think anyone who's planning an event, a virtual event versus a physical event, when you look at the budget, when you look at the cost, your bottom line costs, first time you look at it, you kind of chuckle, because you're not hiring massive venues and building huge LEDs and stuff. So the costs are a fraction of the physical events. And then finally, really, there's this thing called data. Who knew? Yeah. And stuff that, I've done all these events for the entertainment business, for the music business, sports business, gaming business, where everyone talks about data. And you sit at the back going, yeah, I've got a full room, I'm happy. All of a sudden, I know exactly how many people tuned in, how many people were engaged, how many people, and what sessions worked and what didn't, and just amazing analytics that have come out of this event. So that's been really, really good. I mean, I know it's a rather long way of answering your question, but there has been some really good learnings coming out of going virtual. I would say, however, it's not all good, and I'm happy to, share the other side of it. But yeah, overall, to have, we had the Cookie Monster as a keynote speaker. I mean, talk about highlighting a 35-year career for me. I mean, it was amazing because we could.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because you did bring in a number of interesting speakers. I think it was Mike Shinoda, David Mamet, and like you said, Elmo the Cookie Monster. So you got an eclectic mix there, clearly highlighting the success of the event too. But I've got to ask, I mean, what makes a successful virtual event, and how did you pull this off?
For most event organisers, it's going to be about bottom line, right? And we'll talk about that. But I think the feedback we've had from all of the attendees is extremely important, because we're all learning. Yeah, and half of our business, we've been streaming live content for a decade, but that was always around a live event. So all of a sudden we're live streaming stuff that isn't around a live event. So we had to get feedback from our audience, and how were we doing leading up to, during, and after the event. And we had remarkable feedback from the people that were there, and I guess they're the ones that matter the most. And again, people were saying they loved the experience, they loved the program, they loved meeting people. But next year, can we please be back in a room with each other? And I think that leads to another pathway of kind of the future of events being hybrid. And this has been a fantastic kick up the bum for all physical events. All of a sudden, we've had to become digital, and so that's been quite rapid. But yeah, I mean, bringing in the people like Cookie Monster and Elmo and Mike Shinoda and David Mamet and stuff, because these are people that wouldn't normally necessarily come to Singapore in our case, for whatever reason. And Cookie Monster, he's a real person. He's been around. He arguably taught me the alphabet. And whilst it was fun interviewing him, he has a business story. He's been educating kids for over 50 years, and as a media property, they have a story. So you can actually bring in people that wouldn't normally be at an event, or wouldn't normally want to be at a conference, or might feel uncomfortable live on stage. And actually create something special. We had briefed all of our speakers that we wanted them to be, we wanted to tick a number of boxes. We wanted it to be educational. Everyone knows what the past is. Everyone wants to know what the future is going to look like. So it had to be future looking, and it had to be practical. So basically, what can I take from what you're talking about today and apply it to my job this afternoon? And so that also allowed us to get new and different kind of speakers who wouldn't normally come. So yeah, look, the program was great. We probably had too much content. We probably had a few too many sessions that we didn't need to have. But you learn, you learn.
And I'm curious as well, because it is such a huge ecosystem around every event. So have you seen event producers and organisers, have they been faring during the pandemic, especially in the likes of Singapore, where you've got such stringent measures that have been put in place?
Yeah, I think that's a double-edged sword, actually. I mean, Singapore has been very strict, but the government's been very controlled in the kind of post-pandemic phasing. And at the moment, we're allowed 5 people for dinner, and you're allowed 250 people for events, but there's some very, very strict rules around that and what they can and can't do. But the tourism board and the various agencies here have been working extremely closely with the Ministry of Health to find out where the boundaries are and really get as close to the boundaries as they can to allow event producers to create experiences and carry on working. Now, whether people want to go through all those health and safety checks and all that kind of stuff, that's yet to be seen. But I have to say, and it's not just because I'm sitting in Singapore I'm going to say this, but hats off to them, because they have really tried to engage the event business to help where they can, understanding the extreme limitations that exist on, can people even fly here? And once they're here, how can they get in and out? So I think that's hopefully in the right place at the right time. I think for other event organizers as well, it's and that's what I said at the beginning. It's like, we've got to share information with each other. The event business was hyper competitive before, and lots of big players and small players, and a lot have gone away, and who knows what the future holds, right? We're hoping that it gets better for everyone. Everyone's hoping there's going to be a bounce back, but not one single person on this planet right now today can tell you what's in store. So any help that we can give to other event organizers, any help they can give us, I think it's important. The event business is an important business. Getting people together, whether it's a B2B or whether it's B2C, it's about, remember the first gig you went to, the first music festival you went there. How did you get there? Who are you with? All those experiences can't go away. So it's important that everyone shares and helps each other, and then we can go back to being competitive again.
Absolutely. And you've talked about a lot of the successes that you've enjoyed with the virtual events, but I'm curious, are there any pain points that you could possibly share, and how you overcome them, and how that could help event producers and organisers overcome similar obstacles faced at the moment?
Sure. I think the overcoming the obstacles is still very much a work in progress, and that changes by the day. Okay, so some of the things we learned, I mentioned costs being a lot lower to do a virtual event. They do, however, require a lot more heavy lifting, and where I think a lot of people at the moment, a lot of clients are saying, "Oh, let's do a virtual event. We'll do it on Zoom." To do an event properly, whether it's a B2B or a B2C, you need to think about customer experience, you need to think about speaker experience, you need to think about the marketing. And it actually requires a lot more people to pull it off than if you're working with a normal venue like a hotel or a convention center or an arena. Because when you go to a venue, there are all these things that happen that you take for granted, like the lights are on and there's audio and there's things that work and water and all that kind of stuff, because there's people there. Now, for you to do a virtual event, if you've got multiple rooms going on, if you think backstage, there's always someone who hands you a microphone, and then you walk out on stage and all the lights are there and all that kind of stuff. You have to do that in every single room. So for our event, we actually had 2 of our staff in each room for each session, and there were 100 sessions. So that requires a lot of planning. Tech, it's amazing how many people, we kind of called it the grandparent theory, but people turn into grandparents when it comes to tech. So it's like they don't read anything, and you send them lots of briefs about, here's what, but all the stuff you can't legislate for, like internet connection. On the day, someone's internet is going to go down, their lighting is not going to be good, they're going to have terrible audio, they're going to have kids in the background, dogs barking, all that kind of stuff that doesn't happen on stage at the Ritz-Carlton. So you have to rehearse tech, but on the day, there was one year, last year we were doing we had a gamer who was live streaming in from LA. We had all this kind of special tech set up for him, and there was a fire on his street corner that took down the internet and the mobile, so he couldn't get online. And you just can't predict that. So you've got to watch out. You've got to test and test and test, but be ready for something beyond your control to happen. There is people are not going to pay the same amount of money to attend a virtual event as they are a physical event, and that's going to be an ongoing challenge, I think, for all event organizers. That how do you, if you are putting in more effort on a from a human standpoint, from a human resources standpoint, how can you then measure that with your ticketing or your sponsorship pricing? Because people just aren't, again, more in the B2B space and music as well. People just aren't used to. There isn't the habit of paying to attend a virtual event, and I get that. I understand that. So you have to try and find that value in networking and the community and all that kind of stuff. But the prices are different. And so your costs are lower, but the income is lower. And so, sponsorship in a year like this as well, no surprise, that's tough. The other thing The other thing I missed really was there's no croissants. But it's amazing how many croissants you eat when you're doing an event because they're there, right? Yeah. But then finally, I tell you, the one thing that did take me by surprise is during the event itself. Look, we did an event over 5 days and it went, all day, every day. And we expected people to dip in and out. We didn't expect anyone to join on Monday and leave on Friday. And that's what happened. And so it was very, the numbers were great and we had great. But when you're doing an event, you're there. And you're there with your team. And the team is there pulling together and helping each other. And someone might be struggling, so someone helps out. And you're stressed to the hilt. But it always, or usually always, comes good in the end. And what was the phrase? It'll be all right on the night. Yeah, written about an event, right? And so what I found actually not enjoyable, I don't mind being very open about this, is organizing, being part of a team when you're in your bedrooms or your kitchens or your living rooms. Not two members of my team were together in the same room for 100 sessions over 5 days. And they were located in Sydney, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in LA, and which is a remarkable feat and great to talk about and great to boast about because they did an amazing job. But at the end of the day, you close your laptop lid and you're on your own.
Yeah,
and that's the time when you go to the pub, or you sit down with the team, or the team goes off. But that bit of it, I have to say, is. Bring back live events and bring back the team and the back of house and, just getting everyone together. And, so that was a struggle. I have to say, personally, that was a struggle for me, was not having the team around us.
And I'm curious, do you think on the other side of this, there will be opportunities for, hybrid events where there are thousands of attendees physically attending who enjoy networking, breaking bread with clients and all that cool stuff that we both love, and also combined with thousands of people joining online, actually increasing the revenue and attendance of every event? Do you see it happening like that? And how do you see the future? Is that something that you could look into?
I have to say, I hope so. And if you told me a year ago I'd be saying this, I'd have thought you were daft. But like I said, it's been a massive kick up the bum for the event business. It does offer so many positives, and if people don't want to travel now, there is a habit forming to join virtually. Now, if you're going to pay, X, if you're going to pay 100 for the live experience, maybe the virtual experience is worth 10% of that. Everything has a value. Being there is certainly more valuable than virtually at the moment. So yes, I do believe that virtual will turn hybrid, and there won't be a significant physical event again without a digital component. And that makes it extremely exciting to be in the event business, which, again, in March this year, I thought, oh, my Lord, what's going on? So yes, the future hybrid, but it's working out those values. And also, I think at the moment where you've got these social distancing thing and talk about having, making it easy to be in events and stuff, if I'm in a venue and everyone have to sit, sorry, forgot my English. If everyone has to sit a meter apart, for example, and you've got a few thousand people tuning in virtually, is it going to be a little bit like watching a bunch of kids in a school exam?
Yeah.
And it's like that experience feels a bit strange to me. So look, everyone's finding their feet, but I do, in a long answer, yes, the answer. I do believe the future is hybrid, and the future is exciting.
And for anyone listening that would like to find out more information about the work that you're doing, where you're heading, and keeping up to speed with everything, what's the best way of finding you online and contacting your team? Because I could ask what's next for you guys, but I suspect it changes on a monthly basis. So what's the best way of keeping up to speed with everything?
I'll answer both those questions if I can sure. Throw out a couple of shameless plugs. Up next for us, we've got VidCon now, which is the Asian version of the VidCon show. It's a virtual event, which we're going to be running through through from December through 2021. And we've announced our first gaming festival. We're working with Singtel and Globe and a number of other partners in Asia to produce a virtual gaming festival and Asia's first gaming awards. So there's our shameless plug. You can get me at Jasper Donat on everything. So Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at Jasper Donat, and the website is branded.live.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes just so people can find you nicely and easily. I love what you're doing here. I would say the word pivot, but I'd end up owing you $10, so we'll avoid using that.
It's the swear word. You used it.
But I am
transformation, evolution.
Yeah. And I am quite excited about the future of hybrid events. But if we do end up in that place of hybrid events, just promise me you'll make the Cookie Monster pool party happen. But other than that, thanks for joining me today.
Well, I do. It was lovely to talk to you. And I do actually genuinely look forward to meeting you with a beer in your hand, physically, not virtually.
So yes, the event industry is very close to my heart, and there is such a huge ecosystem run by an amazing group of people across so many sectors. But I am an eternal optimist, and I do wonder if this industry could unlock opportunities in the future. For example, imagine events that have busted out of the four walls of any venue, from Birmingham to Las Vegas, and have 10,000 people having conversations and meals and drinks and making deals inside the venue, but also have another 10,000 people attending virtually from all over the world. And I really think that hybrid events could open up so many opportunities and ways to increase revenue. But yes, we are still a long way to go before we get there. So I hope Jasper will join us again on the podcast next year and update me on the kind of progress that they're having. And if I'm honest, I want to attend a future event, drinking a beer in an after-show pool party with Elmo and the Cookie Monster. But hey, that is a whole different kind of podcast. Hopefully you will join me, but keep your messages coming in, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Let's keep this conversation going, and hopefully we can all share our experiences, what we're trying, what's working, what isn't working, and give the event industry the boost that it needs. And on that note, all that's left for me to say is thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.